In September 2013, I walked into a university classroom at 55 years old. I was starting my MBA. My cohort was accomplished professionals in their 30s and 40s. I was the oldest in the classroom by at least 15 years. I had wanted this for so long that wanting it had started to feel like enough. And for years I had been telling myself, that's out of your reach. And if I'm honest, part of me believed that. And I applied anyway. I did it scared. And what I learned over those 2 years, well, it wasn't what I expected. You see, it really wasn't about getting my MBA. It was about what I found out about myself at an age when most women have accepted that their life is already the way it's meant to be. If you've ever talked yourself out of something because the voice inside said you were too old or too late, stay with me. I'm Dee Dee Sung, and welcome to Follow Your Lighthouse, the channel for women in midlife who feel unsettled, even invisible, and are wondering what this next chapter is supposed to look like. This is the story of what I didn't expect when I said yes to a dream I had already talked myself out of, what it cost me, what it gave me, and what it ultimately made possible, because I think it's going to sound more familiar than you expect. Before we start, if you're new here, welcome. I'm glad you found your way here. And if what I just shared resonated, stay connected. I share new videos ongoing for women navigating this season of midlife. And if you've been here for a while, thank you. Your presence here is why I keep showing up. Okay, let's begin. Here's what happened to my MBA dream. I had put it on the shelf, not because the dream faded, but because the gap between wanting it and what it would actually take to do it felt too wide to cross. So I did what's easier. I imagined it instead. And that's its own kind of comfort, isn't it? That someday category. The dream you keep just close enough to feel good about, without ever having to risk it. No plan, no timeline, no real intention, just something to return to when life felt heavy. And the busier life got, the further back on that shelf my dream of getting an MBA went, until I stopped thinking about it altogether. But if I'm honest, it wasn't only the busyness. I didn't know if I could afford it. And underneath that, even harder to admit, I wasn't sure if I was capable of it. Not at this stage of my life. Going back into a classroom in my mid-50s, graduate level work, still working full-time, that's the thing we don't say out loud. We tell ourselves it's about the money, the timing, whether the moment is right. And those things, they are real, but underneath them is usually something deeper, a doubt we haven't yet named. And I know this because I felt it even after I enrolled. I was in class, doing the work, and part of me still couldn't quite believe I deserved to be there. That's imposter syndrome, and I felt it. But I kept going to class anyway, and slowly that doubt got smaller. And that brings me to the decision itself. When the opportunity came, everything I needed was in place. The funding, my partner's support, my work situation, all of it aligned. And in that moment, I knew. Not after weighing it out, not after making another list, I just knew. And then, almost immediately, another voice showed up inside. And this voice sounded completely reasonable. Are you sure you have the time and energy for this? It's been a long time since you were in a classroom. You're working full-time, you have a family, responsibilities. You know, it's a great dream, but do you really know what you're stepping into? And that voice, didn't always sound like fear. It sounded like good common sense. And I mulled it over and over again until I asked myself a different question. What would it cost me if I said no to doing my MBA? Because I could already feel it, the quiet frustration, the disappointment in myself, the slow fading of a dream I'd been almost ready to live. And I knew this. At 55, no one around me was still asking when I'd do my MBA. That question had quietly stopped. I was the only one still carrying it. That feeling, the weight of saying no, was more uncomfortable than any fear I had about doing it. So I said yes. And I want to be honest about what that yes looked like. It was one of the most demanding things I have ever done. Working full-time, a rigorous program, moments where I didn't know if I could sustain this pace, moments where that voice came back, "Who do you think you are?" But I kept going because the decision had come from the right place, from a dream I had almost talked myself out of forever. And I wasn't going to waste that yes. But I want to tell you something about where I was before that classroom. Over the years, there had been things that I had pursued with real excitement and enthusiasm that eventually didn't work out the way I had hoped they would. And each time that happened, I judged myself for it, for not being able to make it work, for not bringing it to fruition. And quietly, those judgments became something heavier. Embarrassment, and if I'm honest, a sense of shame. A voice that said, maybe you're just not someone who can see things through. My confidence had waned. My sense of self-worth had diminished. I had become more cautious, less willing to trust my own decisions. And yet, on the outside, I looked like I had it all together, calm, capable, in control, when inside, I felt the exact opposite. Maintaining that gap was exhausting. So when I finished the MBA program, when I crossed the graduation stage, it wasn't just a credential. It was proof, not from anyone else, from me to me. Because no one did that work for me. I showed up through the doubt, through the exhaustion, through every moment I wasn't sure I could sustain it. And I did it anyway. And that experience, the grit of actually doing it, began to close the gap between having a dream and believing I could live one. And it set me up for everything I have built since that time. My MBA gave me something I hadn't anticipated. Yes, I got the degree, but what it really gave me was a clearer picture of myself. My strengths and my weaknesses, I needed to see both. What it changed most was how I lead myself. I became more thoughtful about decisions, more self-aware, still cautious, but now I know what questions to ask myself, so I'm not just repeating old patterns. And one of the most important things I learned during those 2 years was the concept of good enough. For someone who had spent years waiting until everything was perfect before moving forward, that was a revelation. Good enough. My MBA showed me I could do things that initially felt out of my reach, and not by doing it alone, but by knowing what support I needed and being willing to ask for it. I used to see asking for help as a weakness. Those 2 years taught me it is a strength. And what it gave me underneath all of that was a deeper sense of self-awareness, a deeper sense of self-respect, and a clearer recognition of where my strengths actually lie. not as a declaration, just as something I could finally see in myself. Not by doing it alone, but by knowing what support I needed, and again, being willing to ask for it. Has it been a straight line along the way since then? Absolutely not. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I catch myself faster now. I recover more quickly. And 13 years later, Follow Your Lighthouse emerged. Because I was finally clear on what I actually have to offer and why that matters more than how it looks. That shift from, am I enough, to what do I have to give? That changed everything for me, because that question has an answer. The other one never did. You see, something shifts the older you get. When I'm clear and connected to myself, I waste less time on things that don't actually matter to me. And I've become much more aware of what gets in my way of actual clarity, self-doubt, fear, the need to get it perfect before I begin. Because here's what those things cost. They cost time, the hours spent in indecision, the days lost to fear of making the wrong choice. But it's more than time. They take away the clarity and the freedom to act on what's actually important to me now in this moment. And I know this because I've lived both sides of it. And I'm grateful, genuinely grateful to have arrived at this realization, even if it took longer than I'd like to admit. You see, if not now, when? Now, if there's something you've been wanting to pursue, something that feels out of reach, maybe something that even scares you, listen to that. Not to the fear, but to the pull toward it. Your intuition knows the difference. And what I know from experience, you don't have to have it all figured out before you begin. You learn about yourself by going through it. You grow because of it. And the discomfort you feel along the way, that's not a sign you're off course. That's where self-confidence builds. That's where self-trust develops. That's where the belief in yourself actually takes root. Not before you begin, because you did. If you're clear on what you want and clear on why it matters to you, you can do it. I wasn't ready when I walked into that classroom back in 2013. I was just finally more tired of waiting than I was afraid. Going back to university at 55 was one of the most fulfilling things I have ever done. And it started with one question. What have I been putting on hold and why? I want to ask you that same question. If there's something sitting on your shelf, a dream you've been telling yourself you'll get to someday, what's been in your way? Fear? The memory of something you tried before that didn't work out? And the thought of going through that again feels like too much to take on? The excuses that sound completely reasonable from the inside. I understand all of that. I lived it. And what I know now is this. When you get clear on what you want, when you understand what it would and will take, and you have the right support around you, it changes what feels possible. That's exactly what my 72-hour Compass Reset is designed to help you do. It's a free 3-day experience, a short video and a reflection sheet each day, just a few minutes of your time. It will help you get clear on what matters most to you right now and what your next right step looks like. You can find the link below. And if you're wondering whether other women in midlife are navigating the same season, asking the same questions, they are. And that's what this channel is for. Now, what's the one thing you've been almost starting? Remember, you don't need a plan. You don't need it all figured out. Just name it in the comments. Sometimes putting words to it is the one thing that makes it real. Till next time, take care, and I will see you soon.